How's everybody doing today? Today we're going to look at a video that goes over data entry screens. I'm going to be using the Triathlon database for my first data entry screens that I create. This database is a relational database. We talked about relational databases when we looked at the reports video. This database keeps track of everything I would need to keep track of to run a series of triathlons. I've got a racers table which keeps track of all the information about racers. Notice it has a racer ID, which is a unique number for each racer. I have a results table which keeps track of their swim result, their bike result, and their run result for each race. And then I have a races table. The nice thing here is, since it's a relational database, I've got a relationship between these two tables. So if a racer is in 5 triathlons during the summer, I only have to take their name and their town and their age group and their gender down one time. And whenever I use it in the results table, I just reference their racer ID. Same with the race ID. I might have 100 people in the race, but I only have to put the date in the description once, and then I just reference the race ID. I wanted to talk a little bit about why you would build a data entry screen. You can always enter data directly into the tables. When you had your first homework assignment and you had to create a table called friends and a table called music, you just enter the data directly into the table. The idea behind a data entry screen, the only reason you would ever build one, is to help the user enter data into the table. There's a lot of things that you can do to help a user enter data, especially if it's a relational database, because in a relational database there's additional challenges when it comes to entering data that we don't have in a flat table. There's some important rules you want to follow whenever you build a set of data entry screens. For example, if I was building a set of data entry screens for the Triathlon database, I would build one data entry screen for each table. So I would build one for racers. It always includes all the fields in the table. You never build a data entry screen that has, say, 3 out of these 6 fields. You always put them all in there. So I'd have one data entry screen for racers. I would have a separate data entry screen for results, and I would have a third data entry screen for races. The other thing you always want to think about is, when should you use a combo box? The combo box is pretty much the most useful control for a data entry screen designer to be able to help the user to enter data more efficiently. So the big question is, when do you use a combo box? I've got a couple rules here. Any field that has a limited number of correct entries should have a combo box associated with it. I've got example in this table. Age group has a limited number of correct entries. If I look at my age groups, I've got under 20, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59, and 60 and over. So I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 possible correct entries. So what I can do is I can build them into a combo box, and then instead of the user having to type in that information, they just select from the combo box. Racer gender obviously has only 2 entries, male or female, so I can build a combo box around that one. The other time that you always build a combo box is when you have a foreign key. You may remember from our discussion in the reports video, whenever I've got a key that's put into a table, here it's a primary key, racer ID, but I put it in the results table for purposes of creating a relationship. Racer ID over here is referred to as a foreign key. You almost always build a combo box around a foreign key. The idea is, let's say Chris Ford is the racer in this particular results record. I don't have to remember what that person's racer ID is. If I have a combo box, I can just click on the combo box. It gives me the name and the ID, so I just don't have to remember all that stuff. So whenever you've got a field with a limited number of correct entries, or you have a foreign key, that's the time you always build a combo box to help the user enter this data. I wanted to get into the database now. I'm in the triathlon database, and I wanted to enter some data first just directly into the tables, like we would do if we didn't have data entry forms. And then when I'm all done with the data entry form, I'll actually enter some more records so you can see how much easier it is. Let's say I've got a new racer, Mike Jones, Plattsburgh, male, 30 to 39. So I'm going to enter that information into the database. So he's going to be racer number 19. So I type in Mike Jones, I type in Plattsburgh. Because I don't have a combo box, I actually have to type this in myself, 30 to 39. And again, because I don't have a combo box here, I have to type in male. And he hasn't paid yet, so I can go down to my next record. So not too hard to do. Now I go to results. In my results table, it's just racer ID, race ID, and then times. So let's say I know from looking up here at the data, I know that I've got a racer, John Sims from Plattsburgh. It was race number 2, and these are his times. So racer ID, I don't remember his racer ID. So I have to go back to my racers table. I do find him. I see he's number 13. So now I go to my results table. I type in the 13. It is race ID 2, so I type that in there. But my point is I have to go back and forth between tables to find the information I need. At this point I could go and type in his times and I'd be okay. The next thing I want to do is focus on building a couple data entry forms. I'm going to build one first for racers, and then I'm going to build one for results. So to do that, I click Create, Form Design. This brings me up a blank form. I go to Design here, and then I say I would like to add existing fields. At this point I can show all tables. It shows me all 3 tables. And I would like to open up the racers table. I'm just going to move this over a bit because I don't want it taking up quite so much room. So if you are just taking over a field directly, like racer ID, I can just bring it over, drop it off. It's going to give me a title and an actual text box where the data is going to go. Racer name, I drag over and I drop off. Racer town, I drag over and I drop off. Now remember, these 3 I didn't have an opportunity where I might build a combo box, but on racer age group it's going to be beneficial to me to build a combo box because if you remember, racer age group has a limited number of correct entries. So what I'm going to do, and this is important, I go up here, this is a list of all my controls, and if I click on that down arrow, I open it up. This is a combo box right here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it one time. I don't click and drag. I just click one time. And now I go drag racer age group out. And what happens is it's going to start a wizard. It says I want the combo box to get the values from a table or query, or I will type in the values that I want. Well, the general rule of thumb is this. If it's just a field with a limited number of correct entries, you almost always type them in. If it is a foreign key, you always go back to the other table to get the information. I'm going to click I want to type the values that I want. I hit next, and it says okay, go ahead. So now I kind of have to remember what I had for values for my age group. I might have to go back and look at my list there, but I do remember I had under 20, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59, 60 or above. So I just type those in. I say next. I want to store this in a value, racer age group. I say next, and then I usually just take the 1 off of there because I don't like the 1, and I hit finish. So now I have a combo box. I'm going to do the same thing with racer gender. I'm going to say, alright, go up and find my combo box. I'm going to bring over racer gender, and I'm going to type in the values I want. I hit next. I type in male. I type in female. I hit next. I want to store these in race or gender. Get rid of the one because I don't like it. I'm going to hit finish. And I have a second combo box. And then I've got racer paid. Now, since racer paid is a yes/no field, when I drag this out, it will automatically just give me a checkbox. So right now I have kind of just a quick data entry form with the fields in no particular alignment. What I'm going to do is I like to do a nice job on these, so I'm going to line these up better. If I click on any particular field, I notice it kind of highlights two things. Now if I go to move this, it actually moves both of these. If you want to move one without the other, you can grab the little gray box and then it moves one without the other. What I'm going to do is show you a couple things. You can put a box around all of them, and then if I hit control and my down arrow, it moves them all down. I wanted to get some room up here. I'm going to put a title like we do for reports. So this is a label. I drag it in here. I'm going to put in my label, I type data, racers data entry screens, and just like when we did reports, I can pick any size that I'd like. I can pick any font that I'd like. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that because we already did that in reports. So I've got a nice label up here. I can make it in a different color font if I'd like. I have a picture that I want to put in here. So I'm going to go back to design. I'm going to find my image control and I'm going to drag that in. On my desktop, I do have a picture called try. I'm going to bring it in. So here it is. I just wanted to show you another thing. In your picture, what you can do is if it's not displaying the way you want it to size-wise, for example, sometimes you have, this one does pretty good, but sometimes it doesn't want to display in the box, take up the whole box. What you can do is you can change the size mode to stretch, and that usually always takes care of it. So now I've got a nice label. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And I've got a picture that I like, and I'm going to just start moving my fields around to align them. And this is just all kind of point and click stuff, so it's pretty straightforward. Alright, I've got it pretty much the way I want it. And what I want to do is I'm going to save it. I'm going to call it Racers Data Entry Form. So if I save it, I should see it over here. And now what I want to do is I want to go into Form View and see what I've got. So if I start looking around, I see I've got all the information I had in my table, but what's nice now is I never have to type this in again. If I want the age group or the gender, I just select from a combo box. Let's try this. I'm going to go and add a new record. So this is going to be Racer 20, and I'll just add, I'll just make up a name. Jim Smith, and let's say this person's from Peru. His age group's 30 to 39, so I just click on that. His gender is a male, and he is not paid, and I just go on. Now you might think, well, you know, that didn't save a lot of time, but The thing you got to remember with data entry screens is if you're entering thousands of records, every little second or two that you can save winds up being a tremendous amount of time. So this is my first data entry screen for racers. So I'll say, okay, that's done. I like it. I'm going to close it out, and I'm going to create another one. Create form design. This one is going to be based on the results table. So I'm going to go back, add existing fields. I can close my racers table up. I go to results table. I'm not going to spend as much time making this one pretty, meaning ultimately I would add a nice label, I would add the picture, I would have these things all looking very similar to each other, but I just want to focus on the more challenging parts, which are when to use the combo boxes. In this particular table, I've got two foreign keys. I've got racer ID and race ID. So that's where we're going to use the combo boxes. So as soon as I start here, I would click my controls. Here's my combo box. Remember, click it once. Now I drag out racer ID and I let go. Starts the combo box. Now, here's something different. Remember before, with the gender and the age group, I typed in the values. Now I want the combo box to get the values from another table. Remember when I tried to enter a row for John Sims and I didn't remember his racer ID, but all that information was in another table. So this is when I tell it I want to get that information from another table, when I have a foreign key. So I say, okay, next. It says, all right, well, what table do you want to go to? Well, that information is in the racers table. So I select racers. I hit next. Says, all right, what do you want? I mean, what would you like to see ideally? Well, if I have his name and I just want to remember the ID, I only need those two fields. If I have his name and the ID, I'm all set. So I hit next. I can sort this, which I would sort by racer name. I hit next. You have the option if you want to hide the key or to see the key. A lot of times I do hide the key because I don't really need to see it, I just need to use it. So I've got the checkbox here for hide. I hit next. It says, what do you want to do with it? I want to store this value in racer ID. I hit next, and again I'm just going to call it racer ID. I hit finish, and I've got my combo box. I'm going to do the same thing with race. I'm going to do it a little quicker. So I bring out race ID. I want to look up the values. This is going to be in races. I want the race ID, the date, and I want all three. I want the race ID, the date, and description. I'll sort by date. I am going to hide the key. I want to store this in race ID. I call it race ID 1. I hit finish. For result swim, result bike, and result run, I really don't have an opportunity to make a combo box. So I'm just going to drag these out. And lastly, I'm just going to quickly line them up, and then I'll take a look at what I've got. Okay, so I've lined up my fields. I'm going to save this data entry form. I'm going to call it results. Data entry form. Hit OK, so that's going to be saved. And now I'm going to go to View Form View, and again, see what I have. So I've got 43 different results. Let's say I go to a new one, and I say, okay, this racer ID, this was John Sims. Well, I don't have to remember his name anymore. I just click on the combo box, and there he is. The nice thing is, this table needs to use the ID, but the way the data entry form works is it lets me see the name, but it still puts the ID into the table. Race ID, I know that was race 2, which was on the 7/5, and then I could just put in his times for result swim, result bike, and result run. And you know, if I go back to design and I wanted to make it pretty, I could add the nice label. I could add the picture. And that's going to give it a nice look. It's going to look a lot like my other one. When I build a series of data entry screens, I do try to make them look similar. It just puts the user kind of at ease. They're used to what this looks like, so they're a little bit more comfortable. The other thing I just wanted to make sure people realized is you do want to be careful when you're using a data entry screen in the respect that if I start changing data around in here, it actually changes the data in the tables. I mean, that's what these things are for. So now instead of using the racers table to enter any new racers, instead I would use the racers data entry screen. I'd never go to results and just enter data into the results table again. I'd always use the results data entry screen because it's easier. It just works better. So anyhow, hopefully this was useful to you, and it'll help you be able to pull everything together and do that homework. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.